I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime, and this is Currents.
Kicking off Respect Life Month at St. James Cathedral.
We may change our hearts and our minds to respect, to promote the dignity of life in all of our society.
Plus, a singer whose music is more than just entertainment. It's a ministry.
Señor, no soy digno de que vengas a mí, pero una palabra tuya.
And what's the secret to a long life? A 100-year-old Brooklyn woman tells us.
Candy. I used to love candy. I ate a lot of candy, 1 pound of candy all by myself.
Well, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. October is Respect Life Month, and life issues, especially abortion, continue to be a big part of the debate over health care reform. A director for the Bishops' Conference's pro-life activities says the bill on the table remains deeply flawed.
The director added that it was deeply disheartening that a Senate subcommittee rejected language that would have protected healthcare workers from acting against their consciences.
Closer to home, though, Respect Life Month kicked off this past Sunday in Brooklyn with a special mass at St. James Cathedral.
Respect Life Sunday is a day set aside for Catholics.
We're here at St. James Cathedral Basilica in the borough of Brooklyn, which is the cathedral church of the Diocese of Brooklyn. We just celebrated the Celebrate Life Mass, that is an annual event here in the diocese, in which we do 2 things. First, we highlight the importance of the respect for the dignity of the human person, which is an annual event in the month of October. And we also celebrated Mass today with Bishop Cisneros and honored the Joint Parish Respect Life Committee, which is a group of dedicated people from different parishes throughout the diocese who have dedicated their time and their ministry and their energy to working for a greater respect for human life throughout society, from womb to tomb. They work against abortion and euthanasia, and they really work to spread the gospel of life throughout our diocese and throughout our nation.
The Joint Parish Respect Life Committee is very grateful and very happy that the Diocese of Brooklyn, the Office of Faith Formation, is recognizing the work of the committee. The individual members are longtime advocates for Respect Life work, and since I retired, this has been my primary vocation. We've done a lot of work. We do have a publication, Respect Life News. We also sponsor a Catholic Speakers Series, and our latest effort has been to promote the Cenacles of Life prayer groups. We know that we can't get any place without a whole lot of prayers, and particularly in the adverse societal climate we're in.
This event today is effective because we come to pray. And only change can happen when our hearts are changed by a deep commitment to prayer and to the presence of God in our lives. Our change happens one day at a time, one person at a time, but God can do marvels. And we come to ask for those marvels. We come to ask for those miracles that we may change our hearts and our minds to respect, to promote the dignity of life in all of our society.
Well, that is the Respect Life Mass at St. James Cathedral in downtown Brooklyn.
And we also have much more on the issue of abortion on our website. Just go to currentsny.net.
But stay tuned, there's much more Currents coming up straight ahead. Just ahead, the day's headlines, including what the U.S. ambassador to the Vatican had to say in his first meeting with reporters.
And hundreds of bishops from Africa gather in the Vatican. We'll tell you what it's all about.
Welcome back to Currents. I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime. Coming up later, tale of the century from a Brooklyn woman who has lived that long.
But first, let's have a look at the day's headlines. Condoms are not always effective in preventing the spread of HIV and AIDS in Africa. Those are the words of Cardinal Peter Turkson of Ghana. He says the church continues to promote abstinence, fidelity in marriage, and universal access to antiretroviral drugs. The Cardinal's remarks came as the Synod for Africa got underway at the Vatican. We get more on that now from Rome Reports.
During the formal opening ceremony of the Synod on Africa, Pope Benedict XVI referred to Africa's culture and spirituality as a spiritual lung to the world. Along with 294 cardinals and African bishops, the Pope asked Africans not to allow themselves to fall into the negative aspects of the Western world.
Al momento almeno due pericolose patologie lo stanno intaccando. Anzitutto, una malattia già diffusa nel mondo occidentale, c'è il materialismo pratico, combinato con il pensiero relativista e nichilista.
The second virus Africa must face, according to the Pope, is that of religious fundamentalism, which he said is more dangerous when combined with political and economic interests. The Pope also called on the African Church to help foster a more peaceful world by bringing together different ethnic and religious groups. After the ceremony, Benedict XVI explained the significance of the Synod, which will continue until October 25th.
È importante sottolineare che non si tratta di un convegno di studio né di un'assemblea programmatica. La cosa più importante per tutti è ascoltare. Ascoltarsi gli uni gli altri e tutti quanti ascoltare ciò che il Signore vuole dirci.
The Pope also took a moment to remember the victims of the tsunami that pounded Samoa and Tonga, those who suffer from the typhoon in the Philippines, Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia, along with the people shaken by the earthquake in Indonesia. Benedict XVI asked the international community to help all those who are affected.
And as for those disasters in the South Pacific, Brooklyn will do its part to lend a hand. This upcoming weekend, Bishop DiMarzio is asking parishes to hold a special collection for those in the South Pacific. The money collected will go to Catholic relief services and the diocese of the areas affected. Well, meanwhile, from Samoa, around 1,000 mourners turned out for a funeral service for victims of the last week's tsunami. The coastal city where the service was held was mostly destroyed, but the church remains standing because it was built on higher ground.
On the first day of its new term, the Supreme Court announced it would not intervene in a case involving the Bridgeport, Connecticut diocese. The diocese has been fighting in order to release documents related to sexual abuse. It settled 23 lawsuits in 2001 for an undisclosed sum and an agreement that details would remain sealed forever. An Italian scientist says that he has proven the Shroud of Turin, which some believe is Christ's burial cloth, is actually just a fake. The scientist says he's been able to reproduce the cloth, showing that it is possible to create something with the same characteristics as the shroud. The shroud is scheduled to go on public display early next year. Well, the new U.S. ambassador to the Vatican met with reporters for the first time on Monday. Miguel Diaz pointed out the priorities that the Holy See and the Obama administration share, including fighting terrorism, religiously inspired violence, and HIV/AIDS.
Well, Diaz, as you know, is the first Hispanic to be the U.S. ambassador to the Vatican. And just ahead, we'll continue our series on Hispanic Heritage Month. Coming up, meet a man who has made music his ministry.
Knowing that it wasn't me, if not through me, that they were able to meet that person of Jesus, I think that's all I need.
Well, as we know from the many cultures we featured right here on Currents, Brooklyn is known as the city of immigrants.
A lot of diversity, and as we continue marking Hispanic Heritage Month, Natalia Ortiz is here with the 4th installment of her series on Hispanics and faith. Hi, Natalia.
Hi, Francesca. This Hispanic Catholic's voice has made it round the world, even to Australia for World Youth Day 2008. His name is Jorge Rivera, and recently he made a stop in our neighborhood.
Señor, no soy digno de que vengas a mí.
The man singing is convinced that the time to live in a world of peace, justice, and forgiveness is now. But how did Jorge Rivera get his start in music ministry?
As a teenager, coming from the island of Puerto Rico, my parents' family, they're all musicians. One of my first interests was to enter into a choir, a church choir. For some reason, it was the place I wanted to play.
Jorge Rivera arrived from Puerto Rico when he was 8 years old. His music took off about 6 years ago when Catholic publishing companies began knocking on his door. Just last week, he brought his Spanish-language tunes to a Brooklyn audience at St. Michael St. Malachi's School Auditorium, where other Hispanics came to listen.
The Latino community, it's a totally different environment. It's more festive. It's more sort of a family that you just, there's a sense of embracement.
He says Hispanic Catholics in the U.S. yearn for their faith and culture.
When the migration comes, we don't come like the Europeans did with their priests and all their entourage. So the Latino community, especially the young people that I work with, I work with young adults in the Archdiocese of Chicago. I feel like they're by themselves, they're alone, and they don't seem to be understood. And the adults, because there's not much offered for them, they just seem to conform with what's available.
That's where Rivera comes in, bringing these Catholics a mix of Latin rhythms and Catholic ministry, which reminds them that they belong to not one, but two very distinct groups.
Being a Latino, to me, is pride, is an orgullo. And I've had the opportunity in singing in other cultural environments, and I have had to put like double work for some reason. They enjoy the music, the Latino flavors in there, but there's something about playing in the Hispanic community that is just, it's amazing. It's a joy. It's always a joy to sing with them and sing for them.
Miguel Diaz, whose son is one of Rivera's musicians, says their music focuses on the positive.
Christian music is supposed to be joyful and it's supposed to be praising God, unlike commercial music, who grabs on the sorrow and from the sadness of people and exploits them. This one brings joy.
Even Rivera's opening act was enthusiastic about his performance.
I understand he's very contemporary. I like it that his music is very upbeat, that it's more modern. When you go to church, usually it's very ornate music or with the organ and stuff, and just to hear something like this is like really great.
The person leaves with the utmost joy out of a concert and knowing that it wasn't me, if not through me, that they were able to meet that person of Jesus. I think that's all I need, all I want.
Jorge Rivera will be in New York again later in the year. He'll be playing on Long Island December 11th through the 14th. Matt, Francesca?
Nice music, like it.
Yeah,
Thank
great.
you.
It was very good, and it's amazing to me, I think, how, because it's just sort of echoed my life a little bit when he was talking about his beginnings, you know, and about how one of the first ways he got into music was through singing in the church choir.
That's right.
And that's something that I did as a young person as well. So you could grow up in a completely different part of the world, but, you know, faith is faith.
That's right. It's the one thing that I think unites a lot of people throughout the world, and it's very nice to see it exemplified in this way. So next week, my final part on Hispanic heritage is actually going to focus on the future of Hispanic Catholics in the Diocese of Brooklyn. And I don't want to give too much away, but let's just say that the three guys that are featured in my story take their faith very seriously.
Okay, well, we'll be looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, stay tuned. There's much more current straight ahead.
Coming up, the story of a century. One of Brooklyn's oldest residents looks back on an amazing life.
When we had to go out to a wedding or something, we used to call up, and the horse and wagon used to come, and we used to go to the wedding.
Finally, 100 years ago, Pius X was Pope, Bishop Charles McDonald was the head of the Brooklyn Diocese, and William Howard Taft was president, having been sworn in as Teddy Roosevelt's successor earlier in the year.
And 1909, also very special for the Brooklyn woman that you're about to meet. Josephine Vitale celebrated her 100th birthday this past week at Catholic Charities St. Charles Jubilee Senior Center. Friends and dignitaries crowded into the center's cafeteria to kick off her second century and to honor a woman who has become a local institution.
You want to know where I come from? Brooklyn. You know where I was born? Rapley Street.
So how different is today's Brooklyn from the Brooklyn she knew growing up?
Oh, and how it changed. I used to like the horse and the buggies. When we had to go out to a wedding or something, we used to call up, and the horse and wagon used to come, and we used to go to the wedding. My mother wouldn't let me go dancing. My mother was very strict. We used to go to movies on Sunday only, because it was around the corner.
That traditional upbringing still serves as an example to those around her today.
She amazes me. I've never heard her curse while I've been alive. Before she actually moved in with my parents, she would go to church every week. Has never worn pants in her life. And I personally think that my grandmother is an angel.
I was a very quiet person. Didn't talk much.
But as her family and friends can attest, she still has a saucy side as well.
I was on the beach with a girlfriend of mine. I forgot who she was. We were walking, minding our own business. And somebody in back of us was singing, "Ain't She Sweet?" Look her over once or twice. So we didn't bother. So when I went home, the doorbell rang, and there's a young fella at the door. And I says, "Who you looking for?" He said, "I'm looking for you." "Me? For what?" "Oh," I said to him, "You better get out of here. Here comes my mother." My mother's very strict. "You better get out of here." I chased him. I told him, "Nothing doing. Out."
There is one thing, however, that has remained consistent throughout her life.
Church didn't change. It's the same. I used to go every Sunday.
I would always go to church with her on Saturdays. Even though she's 100, she's still very with it.
I don't like to sit too long. I like to move. That's why I come to the center.
She was one of the original members 35 years ago when St. Charles Jubilee first opened up. And for the whole 35 years, she's primarily worked in the thrift store. That's been a fundraising sort of component to the senior center.
People used to come in and buy, and I used to wait on them. I still do it.
And she has some advice for young people today.
If you have a good word, you talk. If you haven't got a good word for them, don't talk.
Finally, we got to the question on everyone's mind. What's her secret to longevity?
I ate everything. I was a cake eater and candy eater. But that's what kept me going, candy. I used to love candy. I ate a lot of candy, 1 pound of candy all by myself. Once you give me a cup of coffee and a piece of cake, I'm satisfied. You don't have to feed me.
That's my kind of diet right there.
I know, she's so cute.
She is, she's great.
And so feisty, you know, what I love the most about people of the older, generation is that they have such perspective, such depth. They're so grounded. I mean, there's no flies on her.
Exactly. Oh, respect your elders. That's that's something that's kind of, I think, gotten lost a little bit, in the kind of this generation, I imagine. And, I point, one finger at somebody else. I've got, 4 pointing back at me, 3 pointing back at me, actually. I don't know how that works. But anyway, no, it's, but I think that we have kind of lost that. And I think that she is a prime example of someone that we need to respect. I mean, this is someone, you think about it, she remembers New York before, I don't know, the Empire State Building.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, and she also is obviously kept young by some of her, grandkids and whatnot, because they are enjoying her and she's enjoying them, and I think that she has a great outlook, and she obviously is still very lively and gives a lot to the community that she's in.
And her diet, coffee and cake and candy. If that's the secret, I'm good. I'll tell you, I am all good. I'll be 100 before long.
Well, Vitali, I mean, that kind of means life in Italian anyway,
there
so
you
there you go. Well, that is all for this edition of Currents on Tomorrow's show. It may look like MoMA, but it's actually a church. We'll show you this unique exhibit. We have that and more on tomorrow's show.
But until then, be sure to check us out online. Head on over to currentsny.net. There you can see clips of the show. You can also check out our blog. It's right there on the right-hand side of the page, and it is called Riding the Wave.
And you can also send us an email. Let us know what you think, or share a story idea if you have, a news tip or something. Our address is drop us a line at currentsny.net. So for all of us here at Currents, I'm Francesca Maxime.
And I'm Matt McClure. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night.